Welcome, Math 107 students, to the preview exercises for Lesson 24, Section 3.1 in our textbook, Zeros of Polynomial Functions. So our preview exercises involve two problems here. The first one is a review of solving a quadratic equation. And so, as we know, the quadratic formula will solve any quadratic equation. But I always check to see if I can factor it because that's usually pretty quick for me. So I look at this and I say, are there factors of 6 that add up to 4? And my answer is no. So I have to use my quadratic equation here. So A, the leading coefficient is 1, B is 4, and C, my constant, is 6. So I'm solving this equation for x, so I start off with an equation x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So that gives me negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 take away 24 all divided by 2. So this equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 over 2. So this means I'm going to have complex imaginary numbers for my solutions for x. So let's simplify the square root of negative 8, which is the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. So this gives me 2i times the square root of 2. So now this becomes negative 4 plus or minus 2i times the square root of 2 all over 2. And as you can see, we have a 2 as a common factor to negative 4, 2 times I, and 2. So this reduces to negative 2 plus or minus I times the square root of 2. So those are my two solutions to this quadratic equation. It would be a good little algebra practice for you to go back and place each one of these solutions into your equation and see if you can have the left side equal 0. So we have two solutions here. If you wanted to write them out separately, this is what they would look like. Okay. Now this is the next question is one that, we always forget how to do. We have a polynomial equation here. And we see that we're trying to figure out what the leading coefficient for this polynomial is. What is the leading coefficient? We're trying to solve and find out that answer. Well, if you change f of x to y for a minute and write a times x to the 4th minus 3x squared minus 4, and you look at that equation, you say the only way I'm going to be able to figure out what a is if someone comes along or there's some information given to me about an x value and a y value that is a solution to this equation, meaning it's a point on this particular graph. And that's given to you right here. It's a little bit in disguise, but here you can see when x is 3, y is negative 150. So that information, there's a little typo there. Oh, no, that's right. Y is, x is 3, y is negative 150. Okay, so that means wherever you see x, you can replace it with 3, and where you see y, you can replace it with negative 150. And remember, we're trying to solve for a, so let's put in 3 for x everywhere you see x, negative 150 for y, and then let's solve this equation for a. So this gives us negative 150 equals a times 81 minus 3 times 9 is 27 minus 4. That's negative 150 equals 81 take away 27 take away 4. All right, so that's 50. A. Let me make that subtraction sign in here a little bit clearer than what we have right now. So 27 minus 4, there we go. So we got negative 150 equals 50a, We divide both sides by 50, and A is equal to -3. So now we know the leading coefficient, and we can now take the A out and put -3 in there. So this is very similar to the work we were doing with straight lines and quadratics before. When you're trying to find one value in your equation, like the leading coefficient, just plug in a point that you know that lies on your graph. Okay, I hope that helps you out. Let me know if you have any questions.